USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Game of the Week podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com. An in-depth look at this week's top college hockey matchup and a preview of the other big games.
Welcome to the Game of the Week podcast for Thursday, December 12th, 2019. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. This weekend's Game of the Week has a big Big Ten matchup.
And this week's Game of the Week takes us to South Bend, Indiana, where Penn State will play two games against Notre Dame. We're joined now by the head coach of Penn State. That's Guy Gadowsky. Guy, welcome to the program. Good season thus far to date.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
What have you thought about this team so far? I mean, obviously, you had some nice streaks here. I think 7 out of 8 wins at one point. You've had a couple back-to-back losses, but the results are there. You're putting a lot of wins on the board, and that's usually what gets the season going.
Well, it's tough to win anywhere in college hockey, and this season is no different. And every game that you win, I think, is a cause for celebration. To be honest with you, it's so tough, and it's. We're trying to improve every week, and when we improve well enough to get a win, we're very happy about it, and just trying to continue along that path.
Talk to me about some of your top players. When I look at your roster, 9 scorers, and your 9 top scorers, all from the junior and senior class. And I talk to coaches all the time, and you hear them talk about, we're a young team. We have a lot of underclassmen, but you're kind of the opposite. You've got a lot of upperclassmen. You've got a lot of upperclassmen that are performing well.
Yeah, yes, exactly. But these guys have performed really well throughout their whole careers too. So I think a couple of years ago, we were talking about them leading the way as well. So I think their success is, you have to give them a lot of credit individually. All of them are extremely hardworking guys, and they take their craft very seriously and work at it. And they also have fun playing hockey. They love to play, and they have a great time, and you can see it together. And when you have guys that work hard and enjoy working hard together, I think that's what you get. And quite honestly, a lot of them have played together enough to develop a lot of synergy, and I think you're seeing a lot of that as well.
Your goaltender, Peyton Jones, excellent numbers, 2.39 goals against, a .924 save percentage, but an 11-4-0 record. That's usually what stands out. He's a senior as well, another one of those upperclassmen. What do you like about the way he's performing this season?
Well, Peyton came in as a freshman. He was the MVP of the Big Ten tournament when we won it back in 2017. And he's a guy that doesn't take that for granted. He also works extremely hard. He's a very popular player with the team because of his work ethic and the way he is. And I've always said about Peyton, though, is his value to our team is even greater than his numbers. I think he is extremely even-keeled, extremely calm, and like most teams, we have a tendency sometimes to, when things get frantic, to run around a little bit in our D zone, and just the way he is, I think, is really helpful to our entire team.
We're talking with Guy Gadowsky, the head coach at Penn State. And Guy, you're in your 8th season there. You started a program from scratch. What has it been like trying to build a culture in a school that is so well known for its athletics?
Oh, it's been fun and very enjoyable. I think you sort of hit the nail on the head. I mean, this culture that Penn State has is tremendous, and really we're just trying to fit in. It's doing nothing other than fitting into the culture that already exists. And I have never seen any university support their student athletes better than Penn State. And so I think you're getting a lot of influences from not only what our staff does or our program does, but just the outside staff, or the outside of our team, and including the athletics department and the university as a whole. And if you look at a lot of our success, and I think the enjoyment from our program, a lot of credit goes to the student section, and they're right along with our culture. They're just a great group that have a blast, enjoy hockey, and the whole experience of culture building within Penn State has been really congruent with its values and very enjoyable.
When I look at your schedule, your non-league schedule is a very enviable one. The fact that you put 9 games at home of those 12 non-league games, what is that tough to build that schedule? Obviously when you have a rabid fan base, you want to play as many games in front of them. But is it hard to get that many teams to come into to Penn State?
I think that our staff, particularly Alex Dawes, did a great job with that, and I think it is a fun atmosphere, a fun place to play, a good experience, and our athletic department financially does pretty well when we play here too. So there's a lot of reasons why it is beneficial for us to play at home, and fortunately, I think it's a good experience, and so far we've been able to get it done.
We're talking with Guy Gadowsky, head coach at Penn State. I'd like to go a little bit more now that we're at the midpoint of the season. You talked about being happy with the team and wanting to improve every week. Are there specific parts of the game that you've really liked this season, and are there specific areas you really want to improve?
I think nothing's changed from the start of the year with the staff, our goals. I think we've always been pretty comfortable with our offensive output, and so far so good on that front. But our goal is to continue to improve our defensive game while not giving up offense. It's not just to improve defense. I think it's to achieve that without giving up much of the offensive side that has made us fairly successful at this point. So that's the goal, and really I think that continues on. We do like certain things about our offensive game, and we're happy with that, and we're happy with the improvement defensively, but we certainly want to get better.
Big Ten has continued to be a conference that grows. Last year and this year both, it looks like there's going to be a real clog at the top of the league. What do you see in conference again this season?
Yeah, it's tough. It's I don't know. It's very hard to look at the schedule and anticipate where you're supposed to get wins. I tell you what, it's tough. It's really tough. And I mean, it's fun. I think it's great for the fans. I think it's great for development and intensity of games. But boy, it's tough to get on a roll because every game is just so tough, and you're playing every night a program that has not only incredible quality presently, but just such rich traditions and so much success and pride that it is a battle every night. I think it's great for development, as I said, and certainly exciting, but boy, it's not getting any easier.
Well, and also we see a season like this year, for example, Michigan State has really come on strong this year. It's good to see turnover like that too, right?
Well, the thing is, though, they were pretty good last year. Like, there's it's such a fine line. I mean, you get so many games are just 1-goal games, and if you just get a couple of those to turn the other way, then all of a sudden you go from the bottom of the standings to the top, and it can happen in reverse very quickly as well. And yes, Michigan State is doing a great job, but I tell you what, they were pretty tough last year as well, and you give them a ton of credit, but I think it's not that they've made drastic changes. It's just some of those 1-goal games happen to go the other way.
Talking with Guy Gadowsky from Penn State, and we mentioned the game of the week. It is Penn State against Notre Dame. This ends the first half for you. It also ends a pretty long road stretch, 6 games in a row on the road for your team. I know you've had some great matchups over the time that Notre Dame has been in the Big Ten, but what do you look for this weekend? What do you know that Notre Dame does well that will be some of the bigger challenges?
Well, we know them, fairly well because of our past history the last couple of years, specifically in the postseason. And thinking back to last year's Big Ten championship game, I think the atmosphere at South Bend that night was absolutely tremendous. It was an awesome experience to play in that. Obviously, we came up 1 goal short, but it was just a great experience. I think our program learned a lot. And certainly what we know and have learned about Notre Dame is they're an incredibly well-coached team. We don't expect anything different this weekend. They're not going to give you anything. You really have to work for everything you get. They're just so well coached. They're a very consistent team. They're very consistent with not only their habits but their systems, and because of that, they don't give you much. So that's what we expect, and we've seen it before. And our games with Notre Dame have always been excellent.
You add to that consistency, maybe a sense of desperation as Notre Dame has dropped a few here consecutively. Nothing like playing a desperate team that makes it a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, the thing about we know that, but I don't think it matters. I think we are expecting to see the same extremely well coached, consistent, disciplined team that we always have. And hey, there's peaks and valleys in everybody's season, and I'm sure we all know that they're going to come out of it. We just hope that it's not going to be this weekend.
Well, your team will get some time off after this weekend, but first things first, it will be Penn State at Notre Dame, 2 games. Friday night's game, that is a NHL Network game. So if you're near a TV, that's the best way to watch that one if you can't get to South Bend. But Guy Gadowsky, thanks so much for your time. Happy holidays and good luck the rest of the way.
Hey, thank you very much.
That's Penn State's Guy Gadowsky. Well, there are hills and valleys, and we're going to go from Hockey Valley to some other places when we return here on the Game of the Week.
This is the USCHO Game of the Week podcast from US College Hockey Online.
This is the Game of the Week podcast. Jim, the Game of the Week has Notre Dame hosting Penn State for a pair of games this weekend. Penn State's had a pretty good season, pretty consistent. They're 2-3 in their last 5. Meanwhile, Notre Dame has hit the kind of the bottom of the valley as they have gone 0-5-1 in their last 6.
Yeah, and reading some quotes from Jeff Jackson this week, he's hoping that this team has kind of hit a rock bottom at this point because he's kind of at a loss for how to explain what some of the issues are with this team. They started out like a house of fire. They were playing very good hockey at the beginning, but it is a tough stretch. They had some very good opponents. Obviously, Boston College is as hot as they get, and they had them in a home and home last weekend, dropping both games. But you'd think that there would be a turnaround coming for this team. This is too good of a hockey team. There's too much talent. Same thing you can say for Penn State. Obviously, they were rolling. I think they had 7 wins in 8 games there at one point, but then a loss to Ohio State, a loss to UMass Lowell, a loss to Michigan. Their last 5 hasn't been as consistent as Gadowsky probably likes that. Would like that team to be. So I think when you really look at it, both of these teams are probably going to play some pretty desperate hockey this weekend. You heard Guy say it doesn't matter desperate or not. Notre Dame's a very tough opponent, and at home you would expect them to be equally as tough. This is a good series because this is a rematch of last year's Big Ten title game, and I think that is if you can't get up for that, if you're both of these teams, then there's a problem. But I'd expect some pretty competitive hockey over these 2 nights.
And that was a terrific game. You think back on it. If they have play anywhere close to that, it's going to be fantastic hockey watching. Well, let's go on to some other conference matchups. 2 conferences with no games on the schedule, Hockey East and ECAC. But why don't we turn to the NCHC? It's for the Gold Pan, a tradition that goes back decades between Colorado College and Denver. CC and number 8 Denver home and home this weekend.
And CC is a team that they might not be ranked and they're not at the top of their standings, but they're a dangerous team. Every single time that they seem to take the ice, they feel like a threat to me. And for Denver, they're trying to get some consistency. They haven't had the greatest stretch here with heading out to Arizona State last weekend, getting a loss and a tie on the road against the Sun Devils. So you kind of look at this matchup, these 2 games this weekend, and these are 2 teams that seem to always throw it down when they get together, and you throw the records out. They're true rivals. I know that the Colorado College staff and their coaches love this game. They love this rivalry, and they get to take it on here right at the break. It's their last 2 games before the break. So if you want to talk about a series that will be a little bit heavy, be a lot of knockdown, throwdown, and then the fact that both teams can leave everything on the ice because they don't play for a few weeks. This is one that's really interesting.
You got to wonder if Colorado College has been watching tape from last weekend when Denver was held to 1 goal on Friday and 2 goals on Saturday, because CC has been giving up well over 3 goals per game, and they're going to need to keep Denver at 3 or below, I think, to have some success this weekend.
Yeah, and that, what that has really been what the struggle has been for Denver of late. They had a 6-goal performance against Western Michigan, but you look at the other games, I'm going to go backwards, 2 goals, 1 goal. They had that 6-goal outburst, but before that 1, and 2. I mean, this is a team that at the beginning of the year was just piling them on a couple of nights back to back where they scored 6 goals. Their goaltender, was pitching shutouts, and now you're in a situation where over the last 7 games, they've only got 1 win, so a couple of ties in there, and that's good to be able to battle and get those ties. But this is a team that really needs to get back in the win column because they were rolling when they were the number 1 team in the country. They were absolutely rolling.
Elsewhere in the NCHC, it's interesting to look at this matchup. Neither team is ranked. Both have been ranked at one part of the season. Omaha, as recently as last week, they dropped out of the poll after getting swept at Minnesota Duluth. They're just 1-4-1 in conference, 6-6-2 overall, taking on a St. Cloud State team that everybody would have to agree is underachieving this year. A sweep for St. Cloud this weekend, though, would put them back to 500 overall and 500 in the NCHC. So a very important weekend for both teams.
Yeah, and you look at St. Cloud, you can get a couple of wins here, get into the break on a good note. And it's, be 4 straight wins. They swept Miami last weekend. So you gotta take it one game at a time. Obviously, that's the old cliche. But, you're still looking at this weekend and saying, boy, if we can come away with 6 NCHC points, we're right back in the mix. This first half that hasn't been good can be saved a little bit of salvaging. I think Omaha probably has to think the same thing. We've got to find ways to start winning these league games because they've had some strength at times, but not within their league. So very important series for both of these teams.
When we turn to the WCHA, both ranked teams in that conference are on the road this weekend. Number 1, Minnesota State at Northern Michigan. Number 10, Bowling Green at Lake Superior State. Northern Michigan pretty strong. That should be a big challenge for Minnesota State. And for Bowling Green, they don't want to slip up against Lake Superior State as they have been on a roll as of late.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Minnesota State has been the cream of the crop right now, and they're playing very solid hockey. Really since day one, they haven't really had a bad, horrible weekend out there. Just 1 loss on their entire docket. I look at that Northern Michigan game very interesting. Obviously, they're a very good opponent. They haven't always been consistent at times, but they seem to take every opponent right to the end. They're a hard team to play with, and we know that the fan base up there really does bring it. And that's a great atmosphere. It's a great college hockey atmosphere. So that game I look at, that series I should say, I look at as one that'll be entertaining and kind of a hard fought. That's 2 very difficult games to go up to Northern Michigan and play.
Atlantic Hockey has a couple of matchups on the schedule. The one that is intriguing to me is Army at Robert Morris. A sweep by Army. They have sole possession of first place in the conference. A split, and they have a share of it. If Robert Morris can sweep, they move back into first place. This is going to be a weekend. The Colonials are going to want to turn things around after a drubbing both ends of a 2-game series at Sacred Heart last weekend.
Yeah, Army was rolling, and they had a stumble last week against Bentley. Robert Morris had some really good performances in there. They had a couple of clunkers last weekend at Sacred Heart. So both of these teams, I'm sure have probably been kind of jonesing to get it back on the ice just to be able to prove to themselves that they're better than what last weekend gave them. Although I do think that, Army, they did get a split with Bentley, and Bentley is an opponent that is probably a little bit tougher than their record gives them credit for. So you mentioned it, either one of these teams sweep, they're going to be in at least a tie for first place. The Army can go into first place by itself, but so that kind of does put a little bit of a magnifying glass on this matchup.
And we mentioned Sacred Heart. We talked about them in our Monday Weekend Review podcast. First time ever in the USCHO.com poll for the Pioneers at number 20. They are a team that is an offensive juggernaut. They are not one to be taken lightly, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, teams like Boston University know that, having dropped their single game that they played against the Pioneers. And it's great to see another team break into the poll for the first time. I always think that that's such an accomplishment. If you haven't been near the top for a long time, to finally get there and be in the top 20, it's something that they should take a lot of pride in.
Couple of non-conference matchups also on our radar. Number 4, Clarkson is at Michigan Tech.
Yeah, this one's actually, I think, maybe one of the better games that features a non-ranked team, just because Michigan Tech, I think it's 7 out of their last 8 they've won, so they're on the upswing. Clarkson, we know that they're good, and they've been playing some pretty consistent hockey. So the 2 engineering schools are going to go try to figure things out and on the ice, and maybe they'll solve some of the world's problems while they're doing it. But very strong matchup that will be.
And we talked about Michigan State briefly with Guy Gadowsky in passing. They are at home with a pair of games this weekend against Arizona State. Arizona State ranked at number 16 after their win and tie last weekend with Denver, and Michigan State re-entering the poll for the first time in a few years, if I'm not mistaken. They are doing a terrific job. Danton Cole has things going in the right direction for the Spartans.
Yeah, he's got a great goaltender. And, we say it all the time. If you have a very good goaltender and you can put together a few goals, you're going to be a good team. And that's what Michigan State has turned into here. And at the same time, Arizona State, they seem to be playing their best hockey. They had their 21 days, or I think it was 19 days without a game there. And then they've come back and they've played excellent hockey since. So 2 teams on the upswing, and you love to see that in a non-league series. And especially December, for Michigan State, this is it before their break. Arizona State, they just keep rolling. They got to play every single weekend until the end of the season. So they've already had their break. So they're just looking at this as 2 more games. But for Michigan State, time to leave it all out on the ice.
There's a single non-conference game I'm going to throw in here, mainly because it's number 12 Northeastern hosting, and unranked Dartmouth comes in. But Dartmouth put the first blemish last weekend on Cornell's schedule. Is there room for an upset here?
Sure. They just did it. I mean, granted, that was at home. But, the self-proclaimed America's team, Dartmouth College, suddenly is somebody that's getting on people's radar screens because they beat a team, that hadn't had a loss in Cornell. Now, they had also lost the night before to Colgate 5-1. So maybe there was some frustration and desperation that had to factor in there as well. But Northeastern, they've been playing very good hockey, and they're you just want to see them keep that consistency going. But they can't sleep on this one. This is a good Dartmouth team. They always seem to be a pretty solid team. They don't always get into the results column with the way they'd want. But you're talking about a team that right now sits in 5th place in the ECAC. They're battling. In non-conference, world, you're trying to just find ways to get more wins, and this is one of those weekends that they can go down there and play a single game and just make it about desperation, try to keep that good feeling going in the locker room.
Well, and that's the great thing about college hockey. Guy Gadowsky mentioned it. Everybody mentions it. It's gone from cliche to just something that we all agree on. Anybody can beat anybody on any given night. You don't see that in other sports like college basketball, UMass Boston beating Holy Cross notwithstanding. Anyway, so a great weekend of hockey coming up. Not too many games on the schedule, but check it out on TV. And if you can get to a rink, please do so. Our other podcasts include USCHO Spotlight. We had a great conversation earlier in the week with Scott Sandlin, who's the head coach of the USA team in the World Juniors Championship. And always on Monday, it's Weekend Review, where we look back at the weekend's games. You can find them all at uscho.com/podcasts. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Game of the Week podcast, a production of U.S. College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.